Hello and welcome to Identity Office Hours. I'm your host, Mike Schwartz, founder of Glue. Today is episode 151. Please don't forget to follow the live stream on LinkedIn. Our guest today is Rue Islam, Director of Product Innovation. Welcome, Rue.
Thanks for having me, Mike.
And normally we do a quick intro, but Rue, you were already a guest on episode 54. So anyone who's curious about your background can flip back a couple of episodes. So let's just dive into it. The topic today is stronger logins with FIDO2 security keys. And as I wrote this episode up, I think, my general idea was that we have this password manager that it gives access to a lot of websites. It's now storing our passkeys too. We really better protect the login to that thing. So that was sort of my starting point. Is that about right?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think generally there's been a lot of criticisms of passkeys over the last years, a lot of hot takes, a lot of blog posts. And one of them has been, vendor lock-in, if you're going to use passkeys, you're not going to be able to export and import them. And the FIDO Alliance has built features around that. The other criticism is, well, what protects the passkey provider? A lot of providers are protected with a master password. And if you're setting up a new device, you'll have some form of MFA. Most likely it's going to be a phishable form of MFA, maybe an email code or an SMS code or a TOTP code, a code that you're typing, basically something that's phishable. So yeah, the question is, how can you better protect your passkey provider?
And so I'm guessing from the title of this episode that the answer is that we think it's a good idea to use hardware security keys like USB keys in order to actually protect this vault, because those have the most sort of protections. And what are your thoughts about it? Is that right?
Well, I think you can step back a little bit and just ask, what technologies can you use to protect a passkey provider? And if you're not using FIDO, what are you using? What is so ubiquitous and easy to use that's phishing resistant that's not FIDO? I don't think there are many things out there. That's the whole value of FIDO technology. So as long as it's FIDO based, I think you're in a good place. Now, you have different flavors of FIDO authentication. So you mentioned hardware backed like security keys. That's one flavor. You also have sync passkeys. That's what we do. We store synced passkeys. There are certain benefits of hardware based.
And let me just put a pause on that for a second. When you say synced passkeys, you mean my iCloud keychain passkey or my Google Chrome passkey. So I can basically select an external passkey provider to protect a different password vault, like Dashlane.
Technically, people can implement that. I personally think that's quite painful for the user, because in a lot of these ecosystems, you have to enable your passkey provider. And if you're protecting your passkey provider with another passkey provider, then you need to enable both. And then you need to think about, well, which one am I going to save my credentials into? And then that doesn't answer the question of what protects your second passkey provider, your third passkey provider. It can go on.
Let's pause right there for a second and just talk about passkey providers, because I think our audience, our IOH audience, understands the idea of passkey providers. But is this something that people understand? And how many passkey providers do you think the average person might have?
I would hope they just have one. There are scenarios where you could have multiple. If you're juggling, let's say, if you're quite a tech savvy user and you have your personal provider, and then you have the one provided by your workplace, you may have a couple.
Everybody's got a personal one in Chrome, though. Doesn't everybody at least use Chrome Password Manager a little bit?
What's true is that there are default providers that come with the software you're using.
And Apple's the same thing. It's
yes,
you're not going to not have an Apple passkey as a passkey provider. They are a passkey provider.
Yes, but you do have to enable it, which which most people probably
I
will.
didn't realize that people, at this point, I think you're using it for so much Face ID login. It's almost hard not to enable it though. Like who doesn't
Yeah.
have it enabled? Some
Yeah, I
old
mean,
Mac users.
like to store passkeys in your iCloud keychain does
Mhm.
require user action to go in and toggle that. But in any case, you're right in the sense that Google Password Manager on Chrome, on Android, Apple Passwords on your iOS, on your Mac, that's where most people are going to be. Like that's the services that people are going to use to store most synced passkeys. But what is the underlying account on your iPhone or on your Android device that protects that? And that is going to be some sort of phishable credential. You're going to have some password for your, let's say, your iCloud account.
Yeah.
And you're also going to have some form of 2FA that is going to be very well integrated into the ecosystem. But is it absolutely non-phishable?
Mhm.
Well, I don't think it can be absolutely non-phishable because these services need to provide access to potentially billions of users. And the more complex your security is, the less people are going to succeed in setting up their devices. So ultimately, I think all passkey providers, sync passkey providers, have to
Mhm.
make a trade-off between how open is their system to their audience and how tightly secure is their service to phishing attacks.
So if we have a hardware passkey, um, let's say one of these BioUB or something, um, or a different one, like one of these, right? So ideally, if I have a couple of these things, right, then um, I can use these across different passkey providers. So I can say, yes, I have passkey providers at Chrome and Apple, but I have a couple of keys that I can use to prove. So these become then the keys for all of your bundles of keys. Is that
Yes,
the
and
idea?
I think for certain users like yourself or privileged, let's say, administrators for deploying passkey providers to their enterprise, to their employees, there are privileged accounts that really should be better protected, and tech savvy users who are familiar with these things probably would want to have the best protection, and that would be a hardware security key protecting your sync passkey provider. And yeah, having a couple of keys or more just gives you that. You ideally don't want a recovery mechanism that's weaker than your security key. You don't want some sort of phishable recovery mechanism. So the best recovery is really making sure you acquire a couple of keys and set them both up with your passkey provider, and then throw one in a drawer somewhere at home, or somewhere where it's easily accessible if you happen to lose your primary key.
Right. You mentioned that you were excited to see Best Buy offering keys, security keys. Maybe they should offer them in 2-packs.
Maybe they do. I don't know. I think that would make a lot of sense. Yeah, I think anything you're going to put on these keys, then you'll be worried about, well, what if I destroy, or my dog eats the key, or I lose it? Ideally, you want to be setting up a
Yeah.
couple
Well,
of
I've been
keys.
saying for a long time that you can't undermine your good security with a less secure credential, because you're only as secure as your lowest common denominator, like authenticator.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, I always used to make fun of Duo because they have some fancy like security app, but then they use SMS. So, um, or email, which is probably the thing that got phished in the first place or broken into.
Yeah.
I don't even see why that's considered 2FA, that we send you an email
Right.
personally.
And I think as time goes on, FIDO technologies people will just get used to them. I'm not saying like security keys are something that will be widely used by like the vast majority, but the people that need that level of security on their accounts should be relying on hardware security keys for the software that supports it. And this is what we've done. We've made sure that Dashlane supports that level of usage of those keys. And it's not just 2FA. This is something that might be confused here. When we think about security keys, we often think, oh, it's a 2FA mechanism. It's the way you make sure your password can be weak, because you always rely on this security key. So we're not just doing what's been existed for quite some time, which is 2FA using security keys. We're actually replacing the primary authentication, which is the master password. So what we've built is an account creation flow where you don't actually type a master password at all. The first thing you do is present your security key, and that provisions your account. So that, we think, is fairly unique. It's not perfect currently because the lack of support, and that's something we want to influence by shipping this product, this feature.
When you say a lack of support, so it's you who's making the master key, and do you mean lack of support in the security, the authenticators, like the USB devices, or lack of support in the browsers, or where's the lack of support that you're thinking about?
So I want to be clear, like FIDO is very well supported. Like the baseline experience of Passkeys, WebAuthn is really well supported across browsers and operating systems. That's not the issue. Within the specification, WebAuthn, there are these extensions, and we are using one of these extensions called the PRF extension. This allows the passkey ceremony to produce symmetric keys that allow us to encrypt and decrypt data. That specific experience through WebAuthn PRF and the equivalent standard in CTAP, HMAC secret, the name of the specification, is not supported everywhere. So currently, it's not supported over USB and NFC on, let's say, your iPhone. So you can use a security key to do WebAuthn on your iPhone just by kind of bringing it close to the top of your phone, but it won't work for this specific extension. And without this extension, we wouldn't be able to decrypt the data. So there are ways around this. We can work with like proprietary SDKs, proprietary in the sense that someone has to write the SDK, but it would be based on the FIDO standard. So it would work for any standard FIDO2 key. So part of building this feature is also to push the industry forward, to show that we potentially could have a very easy to use security when it comes to protecting a passkey provider. But not only a passkey provider, there are many other use cases where you may want to encrypt data using a passkey, let's say a crypto wallet, an identity wallet, a backup of all your like messaging app messages. These things, typically users are being asked for a password, and obviously that's vulnerable. So if we can push the industry for better support for WebAuthn PRF, then I think we'll get a lot more features being shipped in products where you can use a passkey to protect sensitive data by encrypting that data based on that phishing-resistant credential.
So I want to ask about you've been saying that the that FIDO keys are a good choice to replace passwords for this master key, but I want to present a different option. What about mobile wallets? Because I see mobile wallets as also protecting, having a private key and being able to sign things. And potentially that could be used for authentication. So why wouldn't for something like the master key, for why wouldn't we want to tie that to the wallet?
Well, I think first of all, like passkeys are anonymous. There's no like identifying information when you set up a passkey. Wallets, I'm not sure we should be asking people to bring their national sort of ID to authenticate into services. I think that would be a bad idea.
But that's one type of credential. We could have foundation, privacy foundation,
Mm,
authenticator credential,
yeah.
that we, so it doesn't have, it could be a different credential. Yeah.
Yeah, I see wallets similar to password managers. There's kind of zero knowledge. They're integrating with the OS. The question is, what are you then using to protect your wallet? Is it a password? So it's very similar to asking why not use a synced passkey provider to protect your passkey provider? Why don't you use like Apple passwords to protect Dashlane or Google Password Manager to protect Dashlane?
Yeah.
And there's two issues there. The first thing is, well, what is protecting that second passkey provider? And the other thing is, you need to now have those two options enabled in the in your setup. So when you go into the settings of, autofill, you need to enable multiple passkey providers. And I think that's going to be a bit too complex for users to deal with. And you don't want to add more layers of complexity when you're trying to make security usable. You want to kind of simplify things. So in my opinion, you want to have just a single provider, ideally max two if you need one for work, one for private, but
Yeah.
one shouldn't be relying on the other, in my opinion. So I think wallets falls into that bucket where, well, what is protecting the wallet? And now you need to think about this wallet on top of your passkey provider. The other thing is, I think when you say that the security key is your access to a product, like the mental model is a lot easier to reason about versus your security key is some 2FA on some websites and you need to go and set it up. Right?
Yeah.
Here, you're just creating your account immediately with that key. And then when you provision a new device with that key, you need that key. So it's a key. Like a key to your front door, you need it whenever you open your front door. And whenever you provision a new device, you need that key. So it's not something you can turn off, which is what you get with 2FA. You can maybe be socially engineered to just switch off your security key 2FA. You can't have that. Can't be switched off when it's your primary key to access the service.
It's interesting what you're saying, and I was also going to bring up that cross-device becomes a big issue too. The wallet is generally something that's running on a phone or a device, and then, well, what about if you're working on your computer or another device, and then you have. So I tend to see the wallet as too high friction for everyday interactions. And in this case, you're saying to decrypt your password, like unless you do the right interaction, you won't be able to actually decrypt your data. This is something you're going to need to do every day, not just once.
No. I'm actually saying that when you don't need the security key every time, you need it when you're provisioning your device, because the device security is, we're okay with, you have a possession factor. Once I've bootstrapped, let's say my iPhone, that's a possession factor combined with a low entropy pin, perhaps. Perhaps it's the biometrics on my phone. That's good enough. The risk is new device or recovery flows. So that's where the phishing attacks are going to be focused. So the fact that I've got Dashlane on my phone and I don't need to use my security key every day to access the product, we have no issue with that. That works.
So it's not encrypted on the phone?
What do you mean it's not encrypted?
Or the data. So when I use the key to set up Dashlane on my phone, and it moves my passwords there, or with my passwords there. So those are encrypted though, right? Yeah,
the vault will be encrypted, but there'll be an intermediate key that will encrypt the data, and that intermediate key will be protected by local services available on a native sort of mobile app. So you can rely on the local keychain to protect that local key that's stored. So once you've provisioned a device like an iPhone, you have the means to protect a secret that you can protect with a low entropy. You can protect with a PIN. That's exactly what your phone is protected with. We think about, biometrics, but ultimately it's just biometrics is a convenience factor for your low entropy PIN.
Yeah.
When your Face ID doesn't work, you're either typing in 6 digits, and that's giving you access to your local device.
True. It adds a knowledge factor. So every time I want to go to, every time I get a new device, or every time I set up a new laptop, for example, or a new browser, I might need my
Yes.
the security key.
Yes, and that's exactly where the attacks take place. The attackers are trying to provision their device with your account. So what they don't have is your security key. So that's where the security value comes in. So yes, you have to have your key available when you're provisioning a new iPhone or setting it up on the desktop machine. Yeah, absolutely.
Interesting. We talked a little bit about wallets, and so there's a new foundation called Ceros Foundation that is using passkeys in an interesting way. And you had heard of this. What are your thoughts on how they're using passkeys?
It's the same. It's the same thing. It's the same technology. So the technology that's being used to, let's say, encrypt a digital wallet, using the Ceros Foundation's using is the WebAuthn PRF extension. And this extension is not only available to security keys, it's also available to synced passkeys. So, for example, Apple iCloud Keychain passkeys can produce PRF secrets. So you're able to, let's say, protect a crypto wallet with a passkey stored in the Apple ecosystem. Now, not all passkeys support the PRF extension, and that's something hopefully we'll see an improvement in support. But yeah, I think this is a good use case, a good evolution, I would say, of passkeys, but it doesn't come without its sort of like risks, let's say, because not only here you have a passkey that is authenticating you into a service, but it's also doing something much more crucial, which is encrypting and decrypting data. So if you were to, let's say, accidentally delete that passkey, poof, your symmetric key also goes away.
Right,
So
and you have to be re-identity proofed. But it's like
well,
when you lose your license, you have to go to the DMV, Department of Motor Vehicles, and get a new license, and and you have to present your birth certificate, and you have to get re-identity proofed. So it might be appropriate.
Well, actually, here what we're talking about is encrypting and decrypting data. So unless there is an appropriate recovery flow set up, you potentially have lost complete access to that, which is a risk.
All the credentials in that wallet.
Yeah, I mean, I say like when I'm helping people understand why people lose access to things, I explain if you don't have the ability to lose access to it, then you don't have any security. Simple as that. So you need to have the opportunity to be locked out of your account or just completely lose access. Otherwise, if it's so easy to get back in, anyone can easily get back into your account. Therefore, there's no security. So I think that's the tough part. How do you create easy to use recovery mechanism? And I think actually digital wallets do have a role to play. Like we can imagine a future where we escrow recovery keys and they only get released on presentation of like a national ID. So you obviously need to present this when you set up your service or your recovery. And you can use like some sort of cloud secure enclave to store a symmetric key, but it'll only get released when the correct national ID is presented. I can see that as something that
almost like an intermediate CA.
Yeah, and there's a lot of evolutions going on. I mean, it's not the subject of this talk, but there's a lot of evolutions going on around digital IDs. I'm sure your listeners are familiar with.
That's why I tried to pull you in. Actually, if it's okay, I'd like to share one of the diagrams from Dashlane about adoption.
Sure.
I want to show 20 most popular passkey domains by share of total authentications. Let's attempt this. There it is. and it shows for those people listening who aren't watching the video, it's showing that Amazon is the top domain by share of total authentications at 40%. And then we have an array of RPs. Intuit comes in right after them. GitHub, Coinbase, and going down to the bottom, even Target shows up and Home Depot show up.
Yeah.
So some people are using passkeys at Home Depot, but not as many. But Ru, I wanted to ask you, there's one that's missing from this. Who's missing from this?
Yeah, I was going to interrupt you and say that, Google is actually at the top, but it was such a large value that it would just dwarfed all the other RPs. So we took it out, and we actually, in the report, we clearly state that like the online real estates that Google has and the ubiquity in our lives of Google services just means that there are much more occasions when we're authenticating with a passkey. And Google have been very aggressive at rolling out passkeys. So the combination of the size of their user base, the aggressiveness of their passkey rollout means that they can dwarf other services. And it's not to take anything away from the RPs in this list. These are the top 20 sites that we have seen evidence of. So this has the caveat that these are passkeys that are going through our sort of system. So if people, let's say from a particular RP, just don't use Dashlane, then we don't get visibility.
Yeah, but it's still a good sample. It's a good sort of even sample of usage, I think.
Yeah, and what's interesting is
nobody surveys the whole market, so
right. And there's a good mix here. It's not just like Silicon Valley tech companies, although they're very well represented. There's also a lot of e-commerce sites that are starting to see the value of faster checkout flows, less SMS OTP for recovery, less user support tickets. So I think the benefits of passkeys are being proven out when you start to see some of these Silicon Valley tech companies like e-commerce sites adopt passkeys. Obviously, Amazon, I would put in that tech category because of the technology that they're involved in. But when you see companies like Home Depot, Lowe's, Target, this means that passkeys are being experienced by ordinary people that use these e-commerce sites, not just the tech bubble that we all seem to be living in.
Can I show the other diagram too?
Yes, absolutely.
Is the growth diagram. And I think anyone connected to young people will not be surprised to see Roblox up there.
Yeah.
Why is Roblox up there, you think?
Well, I think I was telling you earlier how my son got phished last year. This was before they rolled out passkeys, unfortunately for him. A lot of young, like when we say young people, we have to specify these are potentially like 11, 12-year-olds that have very low knowledge of cybersecurity. They probably are using a lot of their parents' logins for all the things they do, whether it's Netflix or gaming. And Roblox is incredibly popular with this segment of kids, and those accounts do hold value. You can load them up with real money. You can have in-app money to spend. So having those accounts stolen is what happened to my son. Luckily, he didn't have any cash involved, but it was.
Does he use a passkey now? I mean, a security key now?
So I actually went really extreme. I set up a passkey using my Dashlane account, so he cannot give anything away. But yeah, he learned his lesson, and I couldn't have taught him the lesson of phishing. I think it was great that he experienced it early on, and there was no financial loss. It was more
just Roblox. What else do you see on this chart?
I mean, the third item here is really interesting. I don't think I can pronounce this correctly. Bundesagentur für Arbeit, which is the German state, I think, for maybe the unemployment office or something. I'm not quite sure. But that's really interesting. A sort of a national entity in Europe has adopted quite aggressively, it seems. Passkeys, they've clearly seen the benefits. They have, sometimes FIDO, Apple, Microsoft, Google can be seen as an American thing, American technology.
Right.
And this proves that it's not. It really is an international standard, and it's beneficial to everyone everywhere. So it's a good sign that we start seeing this year. I think the National Health Service is in the middle of the chart. So for those that are unfamiliar, the National Health Service is the UK's commonly called the NHS, the UK Health Service. They've been rolling out passkey support, and this now we're really talking about the average folks on the street. We're not talking about people that are in the tech world. This is anyone that needs to access the NHS for booking appointments, visiting their doctor, going to the pharmacy. So this is like your real life use cases of passkeys, and I think clearly they've had a success with. They felt like this is the right time. The market of passkey support is mature enough for everyday people to use passkeys, and that's great to see from the NHS. So yeah, see those national level organizations, the German state, the health service in the UK, I think really indicates we're not now in a phase where we're trying to convince people to use passkeys. I think people are convinced. It's now just waiting for those rollouts and improving what exists. We're going to see things evolving. We already have seen evolutions of the standards. We've got things like automatic passkey creation. We've got related origins request support. So if you have multiple domains like .co.uk, .fr, your single passkey can work across domains, which seems like an odd idea because the idea is origin binding, but you can safely have multiple origins supported. And we have things like the Signals API. What if the user goes into Amazon and deletes their passkey? Shouldn't the passkey provider be told that they can safely remove that entry from their wallet, their passkey provider app? So yeah, I think we're starting to see now like a more complex conversation in terms of what RPs need to do, what passkey providers need to do, and this all benefits the user. In fact, the user's not being asked to do much more here. All they're being asked to do is make sure they have a passkey provider, and they just need to just access the services as they do. The RP and the passkey provider are doing the heavy lifting, as well as obviously the standards bodies and the specs that are evolving as time goes on.
It does seem sort of new to me that a passkey or security key could be used to encrypt, and not just as an authentication sort of challenge response mechanism. So I do think that's a bit of a mental model shift for people.
Yeah, and this is something that's in the level 3 specification of WebAuthn, which is like going through the final steps. Like I say, even if it's not in a fully finalized standard, there's quite a broad support for it already. It's going to take time before the vast majority of providers support this functionality, because what you want to be able to do is let's say protect, a crypto wallet or a password manager with any passkey in any service. And that's not the case today. The reason we chose to stick to security keys is that's where we have certain guarantees. Security keys are based on the CTAP standard, and when you build a security key, you decide which specification to work against. So there'll be like CTAP 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, and we know that if you have a FIDO2 security key with CTAP 2.1, it's going to work. That's currently not the case for synced passkey providers. There's no sort of specification that says, Dashlane's at spec 6 or spec 7. We have to check manually, like, does Dashlane support X, Y, and Z of the specification? Does Apple support X, Y, and Z? And that's something that I think will evolve and improve over time. But we don't have to worry about that when we have security. We get certain guarantees of the security key, which is why we chose them as our way of decrypting and encrypting the vault.
So I want to make fun of you a little bit here. So you're saying we could protect all of our passkey vaults with security keys, but Dashlane's the only one who does it right now. Is that
Actually, yes, we don't support PRF at the moment. I mean, it's in our priority
no,
list.
but I mean, that's true. I haven't even looked if you as a passkey provider support it, but no other passkey providers actually support using even a security key as a master
No,
key.
no,
Or
there
you-
are other providers that use security keys, let's say, as a form of 2FA.
Oh, okay.
I think Bitwarden does support PRF, but I think in their case, you still need to create an account with a master password, but later on, you can then set up a security key. So we could have done that. We could have done 2FA. What we wanted to like see how far we can push the boat out and like completely get rid of the master password. Because
Right.
wherever you have a master password, you have not only the chance of it getting phished, but users forget them. That's like a very popular
Oh, yeah. Yeah, yeah.
issue. I forgot my master password. And the other part of forgetting a password is people are used to clicking, I forgot my password and expecting a magic link. You
Same
can't do
thing with
that.
crypto wallets. Like,
You
where do you
can't do
put
that,
your
right?
crypto wallet
Yeah,
password?
it's exactly the same. You can't expect, like if we can send you a magic link and you recover your Dashlane vault, well, there's no security here.
Yeah.
You know, we can send that link to myself and I can have access to your account. So yeah, so we wanted to entirely replace the master password and just get the mental model like understood that the key is access to the product.
Would you want Dashlane to be the master key? Maybe as a passkey provider, you don't even like that idea of you being a master key, and you're like, I think people should use us as the master key.
I mean, that's what we are when you store your credentials in Dashlane.
Yeah.
You know, if you're storing, like, we don't know like how important those credentials are to people. We know that people store a lot of them, but there might be something in there that's like the master key to another product.
Yeah.
But then that's up to,
You already signed up for that, is what you're
yeah.
saying.
I mean, there's only so much you can do to allow for account continuity. Recovery is a difficult topic. And there's other related topics like, you know, digital estate. If you know, your loved ones pass away, how do you protect or how do you gain access to credentials for someone who's died? That's a topic that is being worked on in, I believe
Wouldn't
in.
this solution be good for it? Because it's tied to a hardware device, right? So you can put it in an envelope and be like, when I die, open this envelope, pin
Could
7.
be. It could be. I mean, you do need that knowledge factor. There is
Yeah.
that.
That's what I said. The pin
Yeah,
is whatever. Yeah.
that could be a solution. I think there's a lot of work to be done around recovery in general, but that might work for a lot of people. That might not work for others. But I think
It is a
as
nightmare closing down. Like, I have hundreds of accounts, you know, and some of them probably should be closed down. Like, if my Uber's account is still open after I die, then no good is going to come of it. I'm not Ubering anywhere. So
yeah, I imagine, you know, regulation's going to push these services to just automatically start shutting services down if there's not been any activity for a set period of time. But for the family that, you know, inherits all this digital real estate that they have to somehow manage, I think there could be more evolutions in the industry to improve this stuff. There's no great solution right now that I know of.
so we're almost out of time. I guess my last question would be roadmap. Any so what's sort of next in your roadmap?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, this experience is not available on all platforms. We are working with a partner to integrate an SDK that would allow us to make this work on, for example, on Apple platforms. So that's our major next step. And at that point, this is now going to be a usable solution. The product is available like today. You can use it on like Chrome and Edge, etc. But yeah, around Q1 time, we're going to have the mobile piece, which will kind of complete the picture.
Yeah. Well, maybe I'd be tempted to actually use a password manager. Believe it or not, I don't. I know people say it's best practice, but I don't.
Yeah, I'm not going to tell you to. I'm not going to ask you to use a
But
particular one, but any password manager would be a good thing.
well, if I could protect it with a key, I think that might get me over the edge of saying, okay, that's actually a better solution. So yeah, cool. Any last thoughts before we break?
No, I'd say for anyone that's curious to try this out, you can download the Chrome extension, and when you create your account, you'll have an option to use a security key. So if you already have a FIDO2 security key, you can try that out. You can log in, you can log out, you can go to a new computer and try and access it, and just compare how that feels, what you feel about it compared to a master password. We think that it's a better solution for people that are very technical. And yeah, we'd love to have some feedback if anyone wants to ping me on LinkedIn or anywhere. You can get my details on LinkedIn. Happy to hear how people receive this kind of functionality.
Yeah, maybe I'll try it and I can complain
Yeah, let me
directly
know.
at one of the product managers, or the director of innovation, I guess. Director
Yeah,
of product innovation.
happy to hear.
Awesome. Next episode, sort of a different one. It's about citizen identity, lessons learned from Social Security. It's Leland Dudak, former SSA interim um, um, administrator, I guess, executive. He's going to be on next time. Next week, by the way, we're off for KubeCon, so that this is a week from next Tuesday. Anyway, it should be an interesting episode. And with that, Rue, it's always great talking about passkeys and FIDOs with you guys. So, Rue, thank you so much for sharing what you're doing. I hope to see you soon at some conference.
Cool.
And with that, I'll say thanks, Rue. Thanks, audience. And we'll see you next time.
Thanks, Mike. Thanks all.